after a jury found Johnson & Johnson baby powder liable for his cancer diagnosis. Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery has more.
Springfield businessman Evan Plotkin has been fighting a form of lung cancer known as mesothelioma for the past 5 years. Although Plotkin will likely never win his battle against this terminal illness, he recently had a big victory in court.
On Tuesday, a Connecticut jury found Johnson & Johnson's talcum powder to be the culprit, holding J&J responsible for paying the Plotkin family $15 million in damages.
Johnson & Johnson has in their files, and what has been demonstrated time and time again, is that there is asbestos in Johnson & Johnson's baby powder. And so Johnson & Johnson knew that decades ago and made the decision not to tell the public about that.
Trey Branham is a partner at the law firm who tried Plotkin's case, overseeing it every step of the way.
So some technical difficulties in that story. We can tell you Western Mass News reached out to Johnson & Johnson for a statement, and they tell us in part, quote, "We will immediately appeal the erroneous rulings by the trial judge that prevented us from sharing critical facts with the jury that demonstrate the plaintiff's exceedingly rare form of mesothelioma was not caused by talcum powder. Those facts show that the verdict is irreconcilable with the decades of independent scientific evaluations confirming talc is safe, does not contain asbestos, and does not cause cancer." Attorney Branham telling us they will certainly oppose any appeal filed by Johnson & Johnson.
Now, temperature